But I watched the house get painted, and I watched them caulk the bottom of the clapboards once. And I've been watching this paint fall off this house in sheets over the past few years. In sheets, like literally, it is just coming off the house. And it's been 5-6 years.
Welcome to the Fine Home Building Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. I'm Justin Fink. I'll be your host. On my left is Brian Pontilillo. On my right is Rob Yeagan.
Hey, Justin. Welcome back.
Said your name's out of order. Yes, I'm coming off of a week's vacation. Thrilled to be here.
On this Monday, we're recording Monday
podcast. We're doing 2 this week. I think we're gonna have a guest next week, later in the week. So,
anyone good?
I can't tell you. It's a secret. You're gonna love it though. If I get it lined up, Rob, you're gonna be super excited.
If you pull it off.
If I pull it off. So what are we gonna do today? We should probably catch up on things that happened while we were away, and then we'll also catch up on some questions that came in while we were away. I was told that you were going handheld with the microphone this episode, no?
I tried to take the mic out of the stand, and I don't think Brian had suggested I don't have the right cord here.
Oh, you don't have enough cord?
You don't have enough cord.
You can't do that.
So it would have gotten awkward.
Jeff, can you bring in a boom mic, hang it over Rob while he works on his email?
No, I'm looking for this article.
So what were you just talking about, drywall, before we started?
Rob's painting his drywall, priming his drywall.
So the drywall in the remodel is complete. Took a little bit longer than I thought. Not to hang it.
You didn't do anything.
No, I know, but it's just like...
Sitting around took a little longer than you
other
thought?
guys a little longer.
It took those other poor bastards longer than I thought. Well, you know, it's just 3 coats of drywall. We got a lot of drying time in between.
Yeah.
Correct.
Looks great. Guy did an excellent job.
So they did 3 coats.
They did 3 coats.
And they primed it too, or no?
They did not prime it.
All right.
I primed it.
Is that common?
Well, I've had jobs where the drywall contractor will sell you the primer. You know, they'll say like, you know, hey, we'll prime it for you too. Oh. But really, what's going on there? What I came to understand is that they're putting on a coat of primer surfacer, which is often in lieu of the 3rd coat. So so it just kind of evens out the. It's like, I don't know if it's considered a level 5 finish or what, but it's essentially like really thick paint. It's like a half paint, half compound kind of a vibe, and it allows you to get a skim coat kind of a quality finish on your drywall jobs.
They spray it on?
They spray it on. I'm sure they spray it and then back roll it. Mm-hmm. You know, like every spraying job tells you to either back brush or back roll, but I guess probably not for cabinets and things, but for housing, you know, for houses and walls, they do. So
I throw my computer in the garbage.
This was your question.
Yeah, no, I was looking up.
So what did you use?
Oh, so
did you spray it?
No, I didn't spray it.
What an amateur.
But he did get
Rob's still using rollers.
Yeah.
But he got a good one.
Well, I got an 18-inch roller.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So like 3 passes and you were done.
Yeah, which is the first time. I don't know why I don't do like a ton of painting, but like, yeah, when you move into a house or whatever, it's like, why has it taken so long to buy an 18-inch roller frame? Mm-hmm. You just fly with that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem that I explained to...
What's a normal one, 12?
9.
9.
But I explained to Brian, though, at least the Worcester... Is it Worcester?
Worcester.
Yeah, Worcester. Yeah. That's the Worcester frame that I have. Just the way that it captures the roller...
on both sides?
On both sides. Yeah. So it's just tough to get tight into the corner. So when you're cutting in...
Gotta have a cut man.
Gotta have a cut man. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a 9-inch roller. And so on my I'm going to cut in again tonight for my 2nd coat of the ceiling paint, whatever. I'll get tighter to the wall with the 9-inch roller because the frame style.
So you cut in last?
No, I cut in first, but I'm going to cut in twice. So I already have a coat up there. So I primed everything.
Jesus.
Primed the ceiling, primed the walls, and then I got my first coat of paint on the ceiling.
So you don't have flooring down, correct?
I don't have flooring down.
So what made you decide to get a roller frame instead of spraying?
I've never sprayed before.
Hard stop.
Hard stop. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have to mask. Not that big of a deal.
You have to start at some point.
There's not that many windows, so masking wasn't that big of a deal. I would have to block off the stairway really well, so I didn't get any of that, not overspray, but just all that smell and all that kind of stuff filling the house.
Yeah.
My understanding is that you would have to back roll anyway when you spray.
Yeah, I guess so. That's a good point.
And so I was like, okay, so then why don't I just roll with a big old roller?
Yeah. Didn't take that long.
Didn't take that long.
Yeah.
Cutting in takes long. It's like pretty cut up there. There's a lot of slopes, a lot of
Yeah.
corners and jogs and stuff like that. But when it comes to rolling, no, that he just flies.
All right.
But yeah, no, the conversation that we were having before was when it came to priming the drywall, whether to use a PVA primer, which is less expensive for a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, way less
By
expensive.
about $20, $30,
Yeah.
or to use a primer surfacer. I've seen a primer surfacer or primer sealer with the labels.
Primer sealer?
Yeah.
Oh, primer / sealer.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
You're not sealing the
I
primer.
think it's referred to as a primer sealer or a primer surfacer.
So you went with the primer sealer?
Yes.
Why?
Because my understanding is that primer sealers have more solids in them, so you're going to get better coverage on your primer. Some people don't care. They're just like, well, it's primer anyway. Who cares if the corners and the seams are telegraphing through the primer? I'm going to get 2 coats of paint on there anyway.
Yeah.
The logic is that, but if you just knock that out with your first coat of primer and you get complete coverage, it lowers your risk of getting any telegraphing through to the paint layers.
So you're still doing two top coats though, right?
Of paint, yeah.
Well, I'm sort of in their camp. Why wouldn't you save $30 in the primer then?
Because you could still get some telegraphing, allegedly, according to our fine home building painting experts.
Here's something that's interesting.
So, but to your point, what you were saying before, Brian, you were saying that you've never seen a paint failure on drywall.
On drywall.
And I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think the issue is ever sheets of paint falling off the drywall. I think it's just coverage and telegraphing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're just trying to hide.
I guess it also depends upon what your top coats are going to be. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to have like a really probably a higher gloss or higher sheen level, that's going to show all those little nuances in the wall, imperfections.
Yeah, we heard Myron talking about that at JLC Live. He was actually talking about, he asked the clients when he's going in to look at a drywall job, not only what sheen, but what color they're going to paint it. Because certain colors, he says that it's just like, forget it. There's nothing I can do that you're not going to see these seams.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, but I mean, it's a great tip for contractors to be able to set those expectations up front instead of acting like a hero. I can do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, you need to understand if you really want this color, this is the trade-off.
Yep. And so, I mean, when I just made this very quick, I didn't do a ton of research into it, but I just checked out the Fine Home Building Archive, and there's an article titled "Smoother Walls" by Philip Hansel.
Oh yeah.
And he talks about priming, and he talks about the differences in primer and when and why to use certain ones. I mean, he sprays mostly, but
So here's something interesting.
Well, I last few times that I've been in the paint sections at any of the big box stores, I noticed that almost all the interior paints say painted primer and one on them. Yeah. Almost all of them. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it actually means that you should be able to paint right over drywall.
Yeah.
But they all say that on them now. Maybe it just simply means if you're painting over paint, if you just,
There's not much
new
cost
color
difference
on top
either.
of an old or something.
It's like there's
not
almost
much
no
cost
reason
difference.
to not get it at this point.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I haven't read the label.
I don't know.
I don't know if you can go over bare drywall with it that way. I mean, the problem with bare
sound right,
drywall
right?
is just that it's so thirsty. Like,
Yeah.
it just soaks up that first coat so easily.
for sure. Because even using the primer sealer, I was still getting some decent telegraphing through of spot taping for like the screws and the seams.
Well, those surfaces are so different, right?
That's what I mean,
The
yeah.
tape and the
Yep.
paper.
Yeah,
the
they
drywall
absorb
paper,
at different rates,
yeah.
and so that's why you're going to get potential telegraphing.
It changes the sheen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that Myron said is, and I was thinking about it because, the guy did, he had a power sander when he came because he sands his third coat. He doesn't really do much sanding on the first, second coats, but the third the third coat, he's making some dust. But he had, I don't know if he had a festival, but he had a vac attachment, but there's still dust. And I remember Myron also said something in that seminar at JLC. He's like, he doesn't dust his walls after the fact. Some people will take the time to like really clean their walls. And I think Myron said this.
I was just thinking that too, and I can't remember his reason.
Well, I feel
like we talked about this in the show.
I asked the taper, and he's like, no. He's like, because you're going to sand after your first coat of paint anyway. And I was like, no, I'm not.
You probably should. But I first coat of primer.
Yeah.
On drywall?
Yeah.
My taper was like, he's like, you sand between every coat, except for your final coat. And I was like, come on.
Yeah, sand between top coats. Come on, buddy.
But, there is, and so I just sanded like with a 120 on a pole sander. And really, you're not like sanding the surfaces. You're like getting all those little nibs, and like if like dust builds up or a little piece of compound gets stuck in your roller, you're just knocking that stuff flat.
Yeah.
Took like no time at all. And I was like, okay, I got it. So, yeah, you don't have to be dusting your walls.
Sounds miserable.
It's not great. It's not.
Brian wants to be a painter. I can't take it.
Yeah, you like painting.
I like painting.
I like painting with an 18-inch roller.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I like painting with a sprayer.
You got paint. You should be using the biggest tool you can. Biggest brush you can, biggest roller you can.
Pre-painted
when
walls.
When you paint, yes.
Yeah,
pre-painted walls.
Yeah, pre-painted drywall.
Yeah.
Factory applied finishes.
Caulk the joint.
25-year warranty.
Yeah.
So what's next? Are you hiring somebody for the next phase, or are you going to start doing something?
I like that. Justin. Did the whole project except for the drywall
and the plumbing and electrical.
I did the plumbing.
You were there. Let's
I was
stay
there
on.
And the electrical. So I pressure tested. So I had hydronic baseboard up there that was shut off for the winter because obviously there was an uninsulated up there, freezing cold. So I was smart enough to shut off that zone. Not smart enough though to drain that zone. Oh. So I had a couple splits, up there. So, but I'm rerouting what was up there anyway. So I cut back. I pretty much cut back all the baseboard, but so that runs at the perimeter of the exterior walls. And so I cut back at the floor as those stub outs came up through the floor, and I was just like, before I reconnect this, I should be sure that I didn't have any bursts or any splits in the pipe that's in the floor, in the insulated floor, which I thought was kind of highly unlikely anyway because it's like really well heated below and it's in insulation. And so I was like, I don't want to cut into this floor.
Please no leaks.
Please no leaks. So I pressure tested it, and it held pressure. And so I was like, cool. I could just tie in to what's exposed and keep going.
Yeah. Well, your plan was to cut those out anyway, wasn't it? To cut out the old baseboard units? So, like, you didn't really lose anything by having those splits.
I didn't lose anything. What I was just concerned about was whether or not it had burst or split.
Yeah.
Which I would have likely have seen water damage in the ceiling below, but in the pipe that was buried into the floor framing.
But the one that split above in the attic space, that didn't cause any problems?
Yeah, I mean, it dripped into my kitchen.
Oh, okay.
I've got to prime my kitchen ceiling.
Get out the 18-inch roller.
But I was concerned that that line wouldn't have held any pressure, which would have said, there's a split in there, and then I'd have to start to dig into the floor and find it and replace it. Don't have to do that, so I'm psyched. So that's that.
You were here last week, Brian, weren't you?
Yeah.
You were working.
I was working.
It's just another day for you right now.
It's just
nothing painful about it.
What'd you do? You do any projects on your week off?
I worked in the wood shop a bit. Finished the Hoosier cabinet. Got that all, put the knobs on it. It's done. Oh, I got to put glass doors on it, or the glass in the doors. But other than that,
weren't you promising like some big, content coming out of that project?
I didn't do anything.
You took like one photo and said, "Hey, stay tuned."
And I took some video, and then I was like,
never took another image.
And then I was like, I don't know about this. So I had a social media
cleanse.
Yeah, like I had one of those. You go through the periods of like, what am I doing with this? Why am I doing this?
Every time I open up social media, I say that to myself. Like, what is this? What am I doing?
Yeah. Like, what is this for?
Yeah.
And I had moments when I was in the shop over the week. I'm like, this would be really cool. I could take a little video of this and there's something to learn here. And then I went, nah. I just kept on working.
So how long have I been remodeling my house? Like a long time.
Yeah.
I think I've got 6 photos of it.
Yeah.
Every time I think of reaching for my camera to like document everything that I just talked about here, for instance. It's like, I don't know.
For the most part, I don't even like having my phone with me.
Yeah.
Like if I'm in the wood shop, I like to leave it inside because I get distracted by feeling the urge to check it. And I just am happier when it's not there. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I was working on some woodworking projects. I didn't do much with the house.
Becoming a woodworker?
Always have been.
All right.
You've always been becoming a woodworker?
Oh, it's my cross training. Yeah.
Cross training, that's good.
This is So I'm making a couple of rocking chairs.
A couple?
Well, yeah, because mine and for the missus. When you're making two at once.
Congrats.
When you're making two at once, it's not much different than making one. I mean, you're making twice as many parts, but you're set up for each operation. So like it's a very small percentage.
Are you
increment.
making a Maloof rocker?
No, not a Maloof. I'm doing like a Craftsman style that Mike Pekovich did in a recent issue of Fine Woodworking. I'm making them out of ash, and they're going to be on the back porch, and they're going to be brought inside in the winter.
Making them out of ash. Interesting.
And so I love ash. Why is nobody using ash? It's so cheap. Brian popped in the shop when I was milling it because I came to the office here to run it through the machines.
I'm just trying to picture a Craftsman style anything and anything but white oak.
It looks good.
I bet it looks good.
But yeah, it's gorgeous wood, super strong, really inexpensive.
Beautiful
and that
flooring.
stuff that you got has a real nice straight grain.
Yeah, and it's if you find the pieces that are nice and blonde without a real dark blotches, if you get the nice
Ash has like that kind of
ash
that contrast to it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why did I just think it was like just super consistent and super blonde?
Because I think you're seeing the nice stuff. The select stuff.
No, well, actually, the heartwood is darker. You're seeing the sapwood is the nicer looking stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what you probably see flooring and stuff.
But that's often backwards. Like heartwood cherry is going to look better than sapwood cherry.
Right. Hard pine. You see hard pine floors in the South that are just stunning.
Yeah. But and ash is kind of like it's going the way of
it's the ash blight.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting for
ash borer.
I'm waiting for it to be like almost gone, and then everyone's gonna love it.
It's pretty close.
It'll be like
you don't have to wait very long.
Everybody will be climbing all over themselves to be like, I built this out of ash. No big deal.
Yeah.
Did you source some ash? Yeah.
Reclaimed ash. It's gonna be a
I've
thing.
worked on that, but
with our stockpiling.
But what occurred to me when I was working was
I have a stockpile.
Do you?
If you guys need
You still have ash?
I have a ton of ash right in my front yard.
Oh, that tree is still
Yeah,
down?
yeah.
I gotta come take that and get some firewood.
Come get it.
Is it getting punky though?
I don't think so. It hasn't been there that long.
All right.
I saw that sucker up.
We'll be over.
All right, stop the podcast.
Come get it.
It's like what occurred to me when I was working was just so I got obsessive about this one part of the chair. There's curved back rests. I know this isn't home building topic, but
Yeah,
the lesson is
ahead.
home building related because I was cutting these curved back rails, the back rests, and so you have to start with a thick piece and you bandsaw it and then you clean it up and you have to mill the tenons on it before you cut the curve so that you have some square references to work from. And I just wasn't happy with how the first one came out. And I was fiddling with it, spending all these hours trying to make it work. And so I finally went, this is stupid. I got to throw it away and start again. So I threw it away, cut the next pieces. Those came out. I had addressed the problem that I had with the first one and then discovered a second problem the second time around. Decided to trash those. The third time, which was the fastest ones I made, because I was now practiced at it, came out great. Like I nailed the first problem, I nailed the second problem, and the finished result is great. And that really drove home the lesson to me, how you really just sometimes can't plan how long something's going to take. And it makes estimating so hard where you just, you say to yourself, this is what I'm going to get done today on a job. And then you always feel like crap after because you didn't come anywhere close to getting that done. Exhibit A, Brian's kitchen.
Hold up.
Slow your roll.
And I will point out that because you just mentioned estimating, if you're given a price for rockers and you've never built them before,
no,
you should expect to lose your shirt.
Yes.
You're not making it. This isn't something easy or that you've done before.
No,
right.
But that's going to be the same for any project you do if you haven't done it before. I guess true, except in the context of home building,
how much haven't you done before that you at least haven't done something?
Some part of,
or something that uses the same techniques, or maybe it's a different trim detail, but you've cut miters and you've coped before and you've done all the same, you've used the same techniques before. You were making a pretty advanced woodworking project.
I was upping my skill level, but it was just so apparent to me that it drove home to me how little practice we have with the stuff that we're working on in either home building or woodworking. It's like you make a mantle for your house or something, or for a client, and unless you're making a lot of mantles, like one per week or one per month or one every 2 months, you never really can get into a groove where you're improving on anything. You're not doing it faster or better. I mean, you are, but it's not quite the same as if you're doing it all the time. And it's just because we have to cover such a wide swath in home building. I feel like it's a lot harder to get really good at stuff.
For sure.
Unless you're the kind of person who can work really slow and methodical and just kind of work that way through every project that lands on you.
Yeah, but you're still...
And a lot of people do that. I mean, that's great.
You still are diminishing your experience.
Yes.
And so you don't have the opportunity to learn from each one of those. Like if you're knocking out 12 mantles a year, you're going to get pretty good. You're going to find efficiencies. You're going to be tweaking your approach. If you're doing 2 mantles a year, it doesn't matter how fast you're building them. You're not iterating.
And I mean, I'm not... this obviously doesn't apply to everybody. I'm thinking about it from the point of view of a remodeler, which is what my experience has been. Obviously, if you're an electrician or a plumber or a tile setter, you're probably going to be pretty freaking practiced at the things that you do. But, when you're 1 week you're doing a mantle and next week you're doing a porch and the one after that you're, enclosing a chimney, it's like you're constantly getting pulled off of the thing that you're...
Is not a bad segue into one of these questions, whether we want to address it or not. But what you're speaking about is like when identifying a pro or a contractor to work on your project.
Oh, yeah, let's do that one.
What are some of the things to consider?
Maybe Jeff writes.
He's done it before?
Yeah, get into it.
Jeff writes,
Step one.
We're having someone getting ready to do some work on our house, and I started to wonder if we chose the right contractor. Do you have any tips on finding the right contractor to do work on your house? It feels like a leap of faith sometimes. I guess it's a trust issue and based on past experience. I think you guys spoke about this in episode 28, how one bad contractor can spoil the bunch. Sometimes I feel like I know more, such as, are you caulking behind the window flanges? What flashing tape are you using? How are you capping windows, etc.? Other times I feel like I don't and don't know what to ask. By the way, you guys rock. I often think if I could do it again, I would have followed my father's advice and gone into a trade. My son is 11, and I'm teaching him that learning a trade is just as good as going to college. Keep up the great work and great education. So we get this question a lot. This is a particularly well-written version of it.
He's also he's an informed customer.
Yes.
So he's already unique in that aspect. Like he's a reader of fine home building.
Yeah.
Well, so that was
obviously versed in...
I would say that's step one.
Building practices, yeah.
Step one is
educate yourself?
Get educated. Even if you can't be educated, at least become versed in the... the general area that you're hiring somebody for. Like if you're having somebody come out and do a patio, maybe do a little research first onto what your options are and what your, what goes into a good job. And maybe even when you start getting mixtures of different information, that's when you start having some fodder to discuss with the contractor. Like, hey, I'm seeing that a lot of people do this different ways. What's your approach? And why do you think it's the best? And, if they say, and then listen to what they say. And they might say, I find that this is the longest lasting, most durable, even though it's a little more expensive. Or they might say, this is less expensive, and anybody who's doing X, Y, and Z above this is really just trying to make money off you. And yeah, that part gets hard. Then you got to figure out, well, what do I believe? But they're almost arming you with so you start yourself with some talking points, and then they're arming you with even more research points, that you can go back and you could dig in deeper to the next level before you get back to them and let them know what you want to do.
It's interesting, this question, because in the past maybe year and a half, I've been asked 3 times to look at people's bids on roofing jobs. 3 different people have asked me to look at their bids on roofing jobs and to help them decide which one to go with. And each one of them had 3 bids. Maybe that's like standard, you're told to get 3 bids. And, looking at these documents that were submitted to the people, it was like I was still left saying, okay, how do you choose a contractor? Because the scope of work as laid out by the contractors was all the same. And it was all everything you should do. Some of them mentioned specific products where others just said roofing underlayment. One might say, Grace synthetic roofing underlayment. The other one might say just roofing underlayment. And so not as specific. Some people specified the shingle. Other people just said 30-year shingle or lifetime shingle, or had two prices for those shingles. And others had some niceties in there, like, we're going to paint your fascia boards and your rake boards while we're on your roof. And so what it left me thinking was, okay, so the scope of work's the same here, but what about the execution?
Right.
Does I don't know what the good examples here are on a roof, but does one guy use a roller on the peel and stick at the eaves, like the product says he's supposed to, and the other guy just sticks it down and moves on? Is one guy working on the roof in 90-degree temperatures when the shingles are too hot to be standing on? And
those are good examples.
That kind of thing. And so to your point, to get to those, you'd have to be somewhat informed and ask a few leading questions.
Yeah, that's the way I've always approached it. The leading questions thing is huge, but you need to be informed to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really helpful when you already know the answer. Like, we've heard the example of somebody hiring a painting contractor, and the customer asking the painting contractor, so what are you going to do with all the gaps between my clapboards? Are those going to get caulked? And the painter said, no, you never want to caulk those because you want to be able to leave those open for any slight drainage between the clapboards. It might look better from the ground to caulk them, but it's going to be worse for your siding. And right there, you're like, boom. This guy is up on stuff, knows what he's talking about. He has a solid reason behind the method that he's going to use, and not just trying to give you something that's going to look the best. Somebody else might caulk that because they don't know any better, or because they want it to look good and don't believe that there's a problem associated with it.
Right. Yeah. Water time to get back there.
Quick sidebar on this. I may have said this on the show before, but I watched a house get painted, and I watched them caulk the bottom of the clapboards once. And I've been watching this paint fall off this house in sheets over the past few years. In sheets, like literally, it is just coming off the house, and it's been 5-6 years.
I mean, it's arguably one of the most expensive things you're going to hire somebody to do. Yeah, I mean, painting is so expensive, and then to have it just catastrophically fail.
Yes,
it's like, where's the correlation between the stuff that we spend a lot of money on and how we want it to be done? Like, how we don't know anything about how to make it done well.
So how far into the process do you investigate? So I think I'm on board with, like, you ask like some leading questions, like, how are you going to what does your flashing system for your windows look like? But to your point, Brian, when it comes to the actual execution,
once they've started or beforehand?
Not when they started. It's like, do you ask them? So would you ask that roofing contractor, hey, if it's over 90 degrees, do you guys work? Yeah. Like where do you? I mean,
where do you draw the line? Because eventually you got to trust. You're hiring someone. You got to trust that they're a pro and that they know what to do.
At some point you are. It is just the trust factor. It's like,
I think that we're leaving out the obvious, and maybe that's because it's the obvious, which is references and
that's a big
talking to someone.
But the references is bizarre to me, because why would the contractor give you a reference of somebody who's obviously going to trash them?
I think I'm talking, or to Brian's point,
it's a good point.
Well, that's one way of going about it. But the other one is like, you're getting that lead or that contact for a contractor based upon someone that you know. Like, for instance, my drywall contractor, I got his contact from a builder that I know in the area and that I trust. Then I reached out to him. Mm-hmm. That dude gave me, his scope of work was a text message with a number.
Right.
Yeah.
This is how much it's going to cost. And I was like, all right, that seems right. Cool.
We're going to use drywall, screws, tape, and compound.
Yeah. but like we're jokingly saying that, but we know that there are so many right ways to install drywall now compared to, and you even said that they were using butt boards at the seams instead of landing them on the joists.
They use the trim text. It's funny, we wrote an article about it not that long ago.
Yeah.
Trim text butt boards, and then they use no coat beads.
Yeah. So those are like, clearly somebody cares about doing something the right way to reduce problems. They're not just still hand nailing everything and going, whatever, this is fine. It's
and
drywall.
So I guess you could also, if you're informed enough, I mean, and this gets to like, where do you feel like you're the expert, or not expert, where do you feel like the information that you have is solid? Because you can always ask a contractor to do something a certain way.
Yeah.
I'd like you to do it this way. I'd like you to flash the windows this way.
You might be risking that they don't know how to do it that way very well. Mm-hmm.
There's
like,
also,
hey, I want you to use just the no-coat corner beads, like, even though you've never tried them before.
Yeah.
Experiment on my house.
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of money to do.
right. And there's like also, hopefully you could ask him what kind of corner beads do you use, and hopefully he's got a point of view, and you could have that conversation. Have you ever tried the no-coat beads? And he's like, yeah. Like there's a conversation to be had, I think, at every step of the way.
I
wouldn't kind of like pressure a guy to do something that is not in his skill set or in his tool set, so to speak. And that seems a little bit, maybe he's just not the right contractor for you.
Well, and back to where this conversation came from. You asked me if they've done it before.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a remodel thing.
Yep.
I mean, if it's a drywall contractor, obviously they've done it before, or a painter. But if it's a remodeler, have you done this before?
Yeah, I mean, if people had asked me that question, the answer would have been no to a lot of jobs that I did.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's so many different things you can do. And like you said, a lot of them involve 85% all things that you've done in other aspects of other jobs. So, I mean, your answer might be, well, no, I've never done this, but I've done boom, 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 which involve all of the same things.
Yes.
Or I've done this, but it was a little different. Here's how. For me, I get completely turned off by the people who give confident, dismissive answers to things. Like, oh yeah, but I know it. Trust me, I'm using the right materials. I've been doing this for 30 years. Like that.
Right.
That's annoying to me rather than, let me explain to you what the latest thinking is and how this goes.
Because a lot of people have been building for 35 years that aren't doing things right. We know that.
You can just
in defense of contractors, I will likely say that the same could be said of customers, where they're just absolutely confident in something, having never done it before.
Sure,
for sure.
They saw a magazine article, and I understand like we are a vehicle to educate, but that doesn't completely replicate 30 years of construction experience and on the job.
Nope.
Of
work,
course. And customers are often the problem. We know that.
Yeah.
But so it is that thing. Like as the customer, like there is that place where now you're just going with it. Now you're going to step back and say, okay, I trust this guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then. I mean, it's like going to a doctor, right? It's same, not different. Like eventually, you got to trust them.
And I think like the best relationships, and we've said this time and time again in all the houses that we featured, like the best relationships, the best products are a result of just open, transparent communication.
Yep.
Like some people may assume, and when you're looking for a contractor, they may assume that there's no opportunity for discussion or for conversation or for inquiring about certain details or products, and it's a collaboration no matter what.
Yeah.
And,
you know what I mean?
And I would talk about pay up front too. How do you work in terms of pay? Like, well, like do you have a fixed number? How do you structure it? How many payments? How is it broken down? Is it, what happens if you see something in the middle of the job that you didn't anticipate? How does that work? Like, you got to understand how you're going to be billed, because that's where it's going to get real awkward real quick for everybody. Like a text message with the price.
Yeah, it's like
might not be the best.
So the guy gets out of his van, and he's like this old French Canadian guy, and he takes his take off, and he gives his quote in his little like notebook. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna. He's text messaging, like he's got a cell phone, sweet.
Yeah,
But yeah, I was like, yeah, shoot me a quote when you can. And like the electrician, same thing. He sent me a nice invoice. Yeah, he just sent me a text message. I was like, all right, this is a little bit outside the comfort zone.
Yeah,
but I'm going with it.
When we should make a plug for the issue that's about to hit the newsstand when it comes to pricing. We got a feature story from Jeremy Martin, who's been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
He's written a story on his fixed pricing model. So we've talked about that in here before. We don't need to get into it, but I think it's going to be an interesting story for the professionals, particularly in our audience and our readership, and I think it could create some pretty interesting and good conversation around pricing.
No doubt. And I think I might be able to line up a follow-up guest, because last week I had the pleasure of visiting Sean Flynn, who owns Silver Maple Construction up in Vermont, builds in the Middlebury, Vermont area, builds like gorgeous homes. And just in the truck ride over to one of his projects, he started rifling through the structure options and like the pros and cons of each. And so I mentioned that article that is coming up. I was like, you got to read it and you got to give us feedback as to what you think. So maybe we could have him on and
cool.
because he's he's killing it. He's got a really good business going on up there.
Are you going to move to Vermont?
Every time I go to Vermont, I think that.
Did we help Jeff? Did we answer his question?
He sounds like he's like on board. He's obviously knowledgeable. Don't be afraid to have the conversation and then go with your gut. And
and call people, because there's got to be someone who you can call and say, do you call if you know I don't know what kind of trade he was looking for, but if you know a builder, call a builder. Say who's an electrician to call. If you know an electrician and you need a plumber, say, do you know? They all know each other. They're all working together on jobs, and
if you you kind of hit that vein, right? Like you find like a really good electrician.
Yeah.
Chances are they have like a certain standard that they hold themselves to and other people to, and so they would likely give you a solid recommendation.
Yes, find one good builder, and they typically like to work with other good builders. I would also just finish by saying trust your gut.
I already said that.
Yeah, but you don't. You didn't.
I did. I got a text message with a number on it, and I went with it.
No, but your gut was telling you not to.
Yeah, totally.
It's like you didn't trust your gut.
It's weird. It's just like I said, it's like, what in that situation, like, what are my expectations? Like, this dude's going to hit an Excel spreadsheet, and then
but that's part of it too. Is you have to decide, well, what do I expect from this? If I'm hiring somebody to dig holes for my deck footings, I don't need an estimate on letterhead and a follow-up phone call. Not that that's not hard work, and not that it doesn't matter that they're nice and plumb holes and they're set on layout, but there's just not as much to it in terms of, like, what is he going to say? I'm going to use this kind of a shovel, and here's how I'm going to approach it. I mean, it's...
Yeah, what kind of shovel are you going to use?
Actually, there is a different kind of shovel. Yeah. No, style.
So, I mean, we're close on this because there's one other thing that
all right,
go for it.
If a contractor doesn't call you back on the first message.
Oh, yeah. Don't waste your time.
Gone. Move over.
That's
Move
it.
on.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not calling twice.
No.
Okay.
Don't call twice.
Don't call twice. Add that to the list.
Okay. Mike writes, hello, FHB. I'm preparing to install new kitchen countertops and have narrowed my choice to either soapstone or concrete. I really like how these materials feel under the hand and seem to improve over time with respect to color and character. You guys did an awesome article featuring Buddy roads and fabrication of concrete countertops, but there's relatively little information on soapstone in the magazine. Could you spend some time in the podcast discussing your experiences with DIY soapstone and DIY concrete? I know the soapstone is heavy and a 2-person installation, or maybe more, and I'm planning to have the slab cut to size and delivered to the site. I'm concerned about workability and the ease of finishing touches, including rounded edges and drain board runnels as a DIY project. Thanks. So I think everybody at the table has done concrete.
Dabbled.
At least to a certain level, right? I did my kitchen countertops. Rob, you did a coffee table. And Brian, you did like a section of countertop,
I did a
right?
section of countertop,
Yeah, so we can talk a little bit about that. Have you guys done anything with soapstone? I've done only one real project with soapstone.
I have not.
But
I know that Mike Pekovich made his art director at Fine Woodworking, for those who don't know. He made his own soapstone countertops for his big old kitchen remodel.
I think that might be what he's referring to.
I think it likely is.
Yeah, I think we had to ask Mike to write
he
a little
did a
something.
sidebar,
like a little feedback thing.
Feedback thing on it. Yeah.
Which one do you want to do first? I mean, even if you guys haven't installed soapstone, you know about it. So
yeah, and I haven't done much, but I have cut it a little bit and tuned up some edges.
So that's the benefit, right? You could work it with, I mean, there's a carbide tip tools.
Yeah.
So you could route profiles into the edges. You could cut it with circular saws. I mean, you don't need really specialty tools to work with.
Yeah.
It.
No, I mean, it's as forgiving as people tell you it is. I mean, it's you can cut it with a circular saw with carbide teeth. I would take some advice. I would do shallow cuts. So that if you try and do like a real full thickness cut too quick on any of those tools, the blade might warp a bit because of the heat, and then you'll have a wavy cut. You also want to have epoxy on hand. That's how you would join the two pieces to get, seam pieces, and blue painter's tape on either side with the seams. Doing things that are, I would say that custom things are a little harder with soapstone than with concrete because you're not working with a form. I
wonder though if you wanted to do like maybe like curves and things would be more challenging because you'd have to I guess use an angle grinder to cut them
or anything integral.
What about, could you just do sort of like similar to like a fluting jig with a router and just like with ramped fluting jig for like a drain board?
You do like a box core bit or coring bit, which is just like a bullnose router bit.
Just multiple passes till you get to your depth.
Yeah, and so you just make a little ramp for your router and then set it on a wedge so that it's plunging deeper as you go towards the sink.
That's cool.
And then in either case, if you do concrete or soapstone, you're going to want to get some diamond sanding pads. Those are going to be huge. You can get those. I think Buddy Rhodes actually sells them.
Yeah.
Those are awesome. You just get like 3 different grits are the kind of the principal set. And they work awesome to really smooth things. You like run over those cut edges after you route things and after you cut pieces to length and put any sort of profiles on, and they're really nice to work with. The one thing you got to watch out for is chipping with the soapstone. So, there's I would do a search for that. I don't have awesome advice for how to reduce chips. I've gotten better at it, but I still every once in a while have run into problems with little pieces flaking off the backside.
And I would imagine that stone being, a material such as it is, sometimes you're going to get a chip or something when you're working with a material like stone. Yeah,
I mean, I wonder if it's like wood where you can back it up with something to reduce the chance of splintering. But I wonder also if that would just be a waste of time, like you said, because it's stone.
Yeah,
it's not.
I don't know.
It doesn't behave like wood. Plan on it being super dusty and super loud.
Yeah.
What about So that's a workability factor. What about like durability and actually like living with it?
Oh, it's going to be forever. It's going to outlast you, no problem.
Is it softer than granites? So it's living. It's got a great personality.
How's it going to look, though?
I
hope it outlasts me. But how's it going to look?
I think it's going to
look better than me.
I think it's going to look great, Brian.
Okay.
I mean, it's soapstone is on the softer side, so it's going to like eventually, depending on how you wear it, it's going to dish out a little bit, maybe, or
it scratches a little bit easier than some other.
Yeah.
Does it etch like I know like marble, for instance, will etch.
Marble's really soft.
Super soft.
Yeah.
Is that a concern with soapstone that you know of?
I don't think. My guess is no, because I know that soapstone is the choice of like chemistry labs everywhere in high schools. So I think it's pretty durable and pretty inert and pretty. Even if it does have a little surface problem, you can sand it and remove that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very forgiving that way.
I think it's also the least porous stone countertop. So in terms of like hygiene and bacteria and all that kind of stuff.
Which is interesting to me that it's
soft but non-porous.
I guess that's because it's just like a consistent... Has some consistency to it? Or?
I've never been able to reconcile the porosity thing, because you put a coat of mineral oil on it in order to darken it and kind of charge it.
But I don't think it saturates like.
So it just sits right below the surface.
Like
is that what it means?
Another. What else would you do with like a slate? I don't think people are really making lots of slate countertops, but
slate is gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
There's a bar near us that has slate countertop. There in Avon.
That's
nice.
That scratches.
Yeah,
rather
it's
easily.
Nice looking though.
Yeah,
slate, Brian. That's where
it'll outlive you.
It'll outlive you and look good doing it.
So soapstone is definitely a nice option.
I would love to have it. I did black concrete countertops to try to look like soapstone.
How'd that work out?
It looks good, I think. I mean,
we've all seen it.
Yeah, it's
pretty good.
There's
Justin made a concrete sink.
Yeah, concrete sink,
which was aggressive and ambitious, but it looked good.
Looks good too.
Did it crack?
It's not. It did have a little bit of crack in it that I sealed with epoxy after.
Sinks don't need to really be watertight. Come
on. It doesn't leak water anymore. It did have a slight leak in it though.
Before you did the epoxy fix?
It like a year or two into having it in service, it cracked, and I think it was because I stood on the countertop to do something else on the ceiling. So I don't know if it was really related to the sink actually.
So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. This reader mentioned Buddy Rhodes.
Yep.
And Buddy Rhodes, while he does make some stunning stuff and obviously the different products, but my understanding is that Buddy Rhodes, at least at one time, he more or less had like kind of like a press method. in terms of building that form and making your slurry mix so it was a little bit, didn't have much of a slump factor, and he would press it into the mold, which would give it almost like a veining kind of, it gave it a very particular aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
I particularly didn't love it.
I was like,
I was more in tune with like the other guy, Fu-Tung Chang, who these are both guys out of like the Bay Area who are essentially pioneers of concrete. And Fu-Tung, no matter what, just check him out. He had like what I had done, which is more of like a pour, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I did too.
And then vibrate that out, you know, pour it in your form, get your form exactly how you want it because it's gonna telegraph every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
I used what did I use?
I made melamine.
Yeah, I did melamine, which is cool. It'll definitely pick up the melamine texture, so it almost has a little orange peel, which you could polish off if you would like.
Yep.
But it has like a very kind of monolithic, kind of streamlined look to it.
Right. Mine was I did melamine, and then I took like modeling clay and I pushed it into all of the hard 90-degree corners so that they were radiused.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to do something like that, like the runnels for the drain next to the sink, you could just make
that
something
into the bottom of the form,
as a relief and glue it onto the form or tack it on, and then when you pour it, it's gonna.
You can use caulk to do those radius too, and then it's some kind of tool. And I think you pretty much have to use melamine in terms of a sheet good because otherwise the material will be soaking up water.
I'm sure you could use. I'm sure you can use MDO, which is what they use for like concrete form work. It's the same, you know. I would think it would work fine for countertops, but I think melamine is just sort of the.
Well, it's a smooth surface and it doesn't soak up water, so
and
you're
it's
controlling the drying.
It's not expensive either.
Right, it's not expensive, yeah.
So,
and I think the cool thing about the concrete is that anything you can imagine, you can do.
That's what I like about it.
Imagine and make any form you can make, any shape you want, integral sinks or bolt-on sinks or drain boards. Like if you can come up with a form, you can do it.
There's just like everything else, right? Like what you were talking about at the top of the show was like the more you're versed in a technique or a skill, the better you're going to get at it.
Yeah. That's the problem with concrete.
I think you need to apply the same expectation to that.
Yes.
Because there's concrete work coming out of custom fabrication shops, even if they're small, even if they're a couple guys in a garage, that those countertops look perfect.
Yes.
Like high gloss finishes and the colors like perfect and dead smooth. You might need to temper your expectation if you're doing it yourself in the first time. Like it's not going to be that.
Right.
There's going to be some nicks and some voids that you're not going to get the perfect slurry mix to fill in those voids after the fact. There might be a little bit of chipping going on. Maybe you didn't seal it perfectly, so there's a little bit of discrepancy and variations of the color across the whole mass of it. But
the good news is that a do-it-yourself concrete countertop is super affordable.
Yes.
Super affordable.
Super, like ridiculously affordable. So you could not like the first one, toss it, and make a second one, and you're still saving money over any other option.
Yeah. And so, I mean, my last concrete project was my hearth, actually.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you did that.
Which was poured in place because it was big.
I forgot I did that, too, because I've done one poured in place and one
Did you do
molded, because I did the one in my shop, the big hearth for my wood stove in my shop. That's concrete also.
Okay.
And I even did like a relief crown molding cornice thing to go on top.
We should post that article on the show notes page. Chuck Miller,
Great
we've mentioned him before.
Yep.
He's former editor here, and he's just a super creative artist and builder and guy. He did a concrete fireplace mantle that he did himself, and using standard colonial crown, I believe, to make the shapes and the forms, and it was cool. I mean, it was. It's definitely Chuck Miller, but it was cool.
It's gorgeous.
I loved it. Yeah.
So did you do your kitchen countertops? Did you pour those in place, or did you create?
No, I did a form. I did them. I did them in the living room on the floor.
Nice.
Yeah.
Those must have been heavy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did it in sections, and I don't have any really long, crazy runs of countertop. I think I put a break right behind the sink. You know, like it narrows up between the sink and the backsplash, and I put a seam there. Right. So it was two halves.
So you weren't trying to lift a big slab with these two little thin.
I did that first attempt.
How'd that work out?
First attempt. Second attempt, I put the brakes in, which I did the form exactly the same, and I did that trick where you just put a piece of flashing into the form, and you just you just separate it, so everything's going to line up perfect when you
So
get
it's
it
one
upstairs.
form, essentially.
It's one form, yeah, and you just cut a saw kerf in the uprights on the form and slip a piece of flashing in there.
Yep.
And now they're going to fit tight together when you put them in place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That worked really well.
These are not things that are not going to happen when you buy a countertop too. They're gonna, if they see that you have a weak point,
Right.
like a very narrow section behind a sink, they're often going to put a cut there too, because otherwise it's going to make their life like a real pain, and the risk of breaking something is going to be a real pain. I will definitely say that if you're thinking about going concrete, get the good pigment, because you'll think you can save some money with like the off-the-shelf stuff. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, the liquid pigment.
Nothing.
Yeah, the liquid pigment that you could find in the big box aisle is.
It's like pissing in the wind.
I mean, is it completely worthless, or is it?
I think it might be
completely worthless.
I think it might be completely worthless.
Okay. So yeah, hit up. I think Buddy
I
Rose
had
or
Buddy Rose
Futong.
black, and it was just like
I just kept on buying.
But was yours a
more and more
powder?
bottles?
Was yours a powder pigment?
mine was a powder pigment.
Okay.
I can't remember what I ended up using.
I think you did.
Did I use gel or something.
No, yours was a liquid.
Oh, okay.
It comes in like an 8 ounce, I think, liquid, and it doesn't do anything. I did the same thing with my.
When I got the real stuff, because then I eventually bought the real stuff.
I think that you did a dry pigment from Buddy Rose or something like that.
Unbelievable how much more, how much
color it imparted.
Yeah, like compared to, like I bought like a box of that pigment, thinking like I just got to add more.
Yeah.
Obviously, like it's not enough. I have too much, and I just kept pouring bottle after bottle, and it did nothing.
The other problem, I mean,
and I think I ended up actually just throwing that section away. And it's to your point of even if you screw it up, I think now that I'm remembering, I think I did screw it up and I just threw it away.
Yeah, I mean it's
concrete. It's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think no matter what, pay attention to your materials, whether it's the pigment or the concrete itself. I mean, yeah, you could go get bad concrete at the big box stores with a certain aggregate size in there, and it's gonna maybe not perform well. It might look weird when you go to polish it, because as you polish it, you're gonna expose aggregate. So if you got like these large kind of chunks, it's gonna have a certain look to it. Where they make specialized concrete countertops with really fine aggregate, so as you polish it, it stays.
At one point, they
almost
had
like
that
sand.
at the big box stores. I don't know if they still do.
You can
or
still
not.
order it. Quikrete makes it. I know.
Yeah.
Did you use concrete in your countertops, or did you use sand?
I use sand mix.
Sand mix.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
sand topping mix. Yeah,
Everyone said just what he did. What?
Yeah.
Did you put?
it works great.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Did it have like fibrous reinforcement, or no? That doesn't come with any reinforcement.
I don't think I put any
think-
fiberglass in there.
Futong does that, right?
Yeah, you can mix it right in.
He puts mesh fiber.
Like almost fiberglass shards
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could do like a mesh mat or a very fine, almost.
I feel like I did
little
some
rebar grid.
I feel like
There's
I
a
did.
bunch of reinforcement options.
I think I did wire mesh in mine, but I can't remember. But the sink is not actually it's not all one piece. Like the sink is a separate thing. So I dropped the sink into the opening.
It's an undermount.
And then it's an undermount.
Yeah.
And then you just slurry everything together with that last pass.
I'm surprised he mentions the Buddy Rhodes article in this note that he sent us, Mike, because man, that last Buddy Rhodes article. I mean, it's brilliant
done a
what he
couple,
does,
right?
but it's like it makes your head explode
he
thinking
puts-
about how to
Because
do it like
there's
that.
several different ones he does. He changed his technique and uses
Yeah.
this gun
That's
method.
what he was using
like-
in the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's the one with the press method, like where he's like literally, it's like just forcing stuff like with your hands into
Yeah.
the form.
Oh,
but
we've got
then,
such a great
then he
video
used
of
like
that,
a
too.
hopper, right? Like
yeah.
a
and he
spray
sprays
gun.
it in, onto the mold. Yeah.
That's pretty.
And that's how
serious.
he does that integral
Sink.
sink. It was a vanity top, I think. Oh, it was a vanity top that we put up at the
Yeah.
but the project.
That
house.
has a better look to me. And
Yeah, that
in
looks
my
nice.
mind,
Yeah.
okay,
Isn't there a really good video of Buddy Rhodes doing that
Probably.
press method? Is that on our site or is that?
I don't know. We could probably try to dig
Oh,
it
God,
out.
it's so good. It might be the best video we've ever had here.
I spent a lunch with Buddy Rhodes once.
Brian just said he's best friends with Buddy Rose.
He is
Godfather to his kids.
he's worth a look. He's just like, he's super artistic dude and he loves this stuff.
Yeah.
And my guess is that if you have a question for Buddy Rhodes and you reach out to him, that he probably answers it. So send him an
Yeah.
email if you have a question, and I got a good hunch that you'll get an answer from him.
Yeah.
We got one more good question, I think.
You want to do another one? Let me see what I got
it's
here.
It's a good one. End off on a severe debate. Brian's gonna get all fired up. Actually, I don't know. Will Brian
Which
get fired
one are you
up?
talking about?
Which one is it?
The one from Tim?
Greenwashing, product sourcing, greenwashing.
You want to get into that right now?
Are we moving the needle, or are we just moving chess pieces around the board and not making progress as a culture?
All right.
Sorry, I edited that part.
Tim writes, I've been thinking for some time about commenting on net zero energy homes. To my mind, net energy should be calculated by including the energy it takes to mine, manufacture, process, and transport the materials used in a home, as well as the energy to recycle, reuse, and dispose of these materials once a house is no longer inhabitable. While it is certainly more desirable for a home to produce as much heat and electricity as it consumes, it feels to me a little like greenwashing to label a home as net zero when it is far from it if viewed from a larger systems perspective. And then the talk of substituting more PV panels to balance insufficient insulation or inferior air sealing in order to qualify as net zero troubles me. A PV panel that must be replaced in 25 to 30 years should not be considered as important as design and construction details and materials that can make a home more energy efficient for at least 1 or 200 years, which any self-respecting fine home builder should hope to be as the lifespan of their projects. My understanding is that net zero originally focused more on off-grid homes than the grid-connected houses that California is planning for. A PV panel that is supplying power by way of the grid or otherwise to an electric clothes dryer, hot water heater, or resistive heating or cooking appliance is not efficient, green, or sustainable. The PV panels themselves are difficult to recycle, and the infrastructure to do so in the U.S. barely exists. Examine that as a system. Generating electricity with PV panels is far from a net zero solution, and so may not be a good candidate in building a net zero energy home. So, should energy efficiency standards be mandated by building codes? Certainly. The health and safety of the planet depend on using resources wisely. Should zero energy home standards be the law in California or elsewhere? I don't think so. Boom.
So there was a lot there.
There was. It was a long letter.
I can't believe you want to get into that at the end of the show.
Yeah. I mean, just reading the letter takes 5 minutes.
So he's talking.
Brian looks fired
so
up.
let's unpack it a little bit. So what he's talking about is an embodied energy of building materials, which takes into consideration the complete life cycle of that product.
What do they call it? Cradle to cradle?
Well, they don't call it. It's architect William McDonough started a. He wrote a book. I believe it started as a book, but Cradle to Cradle Design, which talked about it was like complete life cycle analysis.
It's really freaking hard to do.
It's really hard to do. He's making a go of it. I mean, I think it has developed at this point to Cradle to Cradle certification, where certain products in different industries could get labeled this Cradle to Cradle designation. Which, I mean, the way that he describes it in his bio, which I'm going to have Mike Alterio put a link to William McDonough's TED Talk. I mean, it's old. It's from 2005, but it's really good. It addresses this issue. But his bio on that is that architect William McDonough believes green design can prevent environmental disaster and drive economic growth. He champions cradle-to-cradle design, which considers a product's full life cycle from creation with sustainable materials to a recycled afterlife. So it's not only in like the genesis of that product and making sure that the inputs are, let's say, resource sensitive, but that the end goal or the end usage or the afterlife of that product, so like when that building is no longer necessary, that it could be used again or it could biodegrade. You know, it's not toxic. It's not a whole bunch of spray foam ending up in a landfill somewhere or a river somewhere or an ocean. Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. You know, especially when we get into some of the other extreme, and I guess we could use that language, right? The extreme methods of building to achieve low energy costs in their operation. What I'd mentioned jokingly was like, are we just shifting the chess pieces around the board? Is it because we've consumed a massive amount of energy to get that in certain buildings and certain climates, that 2 feet of high density EPS foam beneath your slab to save X on the opposite end in terms of energy consumption. Like, have we made any progress there? I don't know.
The parallel example would be like if some company like Toyota Prius, and this is not true, but if their car cost billions of barrels of oil to produce, and then it saved you millions on the back end, did you really improve anything?
Right.
Or did you just pay for it up front?
Yeah.
Kill the planet up front so you could
ease
up on the back end.
So you could put a badge on your front door to say zero energy.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get there. really. I mean, I think that the effort needs to be to do minimal harm. Blanket statement, period. You know, in the creation and the execution of these homes, but also in their operation. And our technology and our practices at this point are conflicting, I think. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people are building really tight, really, quote, energy efficient homes, and they're filling them with spray foam. And I know that the blowing agents are getting better, but I just don't know what that embodied energy looks like, because I haven't been able to find solid resources to present that information to me in a really clear, trusted way. Thoughts?
Brian?
I like his note. And for the most part, I agree with everything that he says. And I don't think, and if we did come across as saying that we think that it's a good idea to put PV on houses where we haven't already taken methods to conserve energy first, if that's what it sounds like we're saying, that then we've misspoke or haven't been clear, because I think we all agree that, you know, you conserve first, you minimize need first, minimize how much how much energy you need to run your house, and then you add renewables.
Yeah.
So, and I think you know, of course, and then taking in that process, taking into account everything we know, and like Rob said, it's very little, unfortunately, but everything we know about embodied energy and other environmental harms that a product might cause, like the blowing agents and spray foam. And I think we've quickly seen architects and builders turn towards cellulose insulation and rock wool and others that are, you know, that are known to have less of an environmental impact than spray foam. We saw that almost right away. I mean, the spray foam came and went out of, and most of the architects and builders who I look to for good information came and went out of their homes real fast. As soon as they did a little bit of research, the spray foam usage stopped fast. The one place where I will diverge from him is that until someone shows me, and maybe someone could show me this really soon, and I'll be willing to change my opinion. But until someone shows me that the embodied energy in the PV panels is greater than the energy that those panels are going to save on the house, I say make the house zero energy and make that part of the mandate, which he says right up to that point he is in agreement with. So show me that research and I'll change my mind, but I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
And so it seems like once you've done those other things, yes, put the PV panels on the house and get it down to, you know, producing the energy that it needs.
I just find it like when you really pull yourself away from the argument of like whether you like PV panels or not, just pretend like you just got off the spaceship on Earth. Like you just pulled up, you're going, all right, so what are our energy sources here? What's everybody using? And like, well, here's the briefing. We got natural gas coming out of the ground. We got oil coming out of the ground. Not so much of that left. We got nuclear power. And then we got these panels we can put up and get all the energy we want from the sun. Like,
don't forget coal.
And you say those things, and when you say them out loud and you really pull yourself away and think about it from that perspective, it's like, what are we doing not all using solar panels? Like, period. Like, it's, what is the downside? I mean,
that's the other thing, and that the good point, because the embodied energy in the panels, not only does the embodied energy in the panels have to be less than the energy that they're going to save in use, but it also has to be less embodied energy than the alternative fuels.
Well, in the extraction of those alternative fuels.
Exactly.
Right.
Cradle to cradle use of those alternative fuels. So it's not enough to say that maybe actually the solar panels actually have more embodied energy in them than they're going to save, but they have less embodied energy in them than the natural gas, than the
you can't
coal,
consider it in a vacuum.
You can't consider it. I mean, and this just goes to how complicated it is.
I think I'm going to charge Brian with figuring this all out for us.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
By next podcast.
All right. Speaking of which, that's going to wrap us up. Send your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. Hop onto the website, find homebuilding.com/podcast, and check out links to everything we just talked about, and cruise around the site, sign up for membership, support the cause. Tell your friends, give us a 5-star rating, leave us a review, all the good things. Until next week, this is Justin for Brian and Rob saying keep craft alive and happy building.